What is happening, everybody? It is Trey here. I'm joined again by my dad, Sean. And today we're going to tackle another monster band that we haven't really ever listened to. I'm familiar with some of the bigger hits, Stairway to Heaven, Kashmir, but Led Zeppelin, their debut album. If this is your first time joining us, guys, here are reactions to the classics. We react to some of the most classic albums of all time in a detailed track-by-track review. So if that sounds like something interesting to you, be sure to hit that big red subscribe button. And as always, guys, due to copyright, we're not going to be able to include the full studio version, so we'll get some cool live performances in there for y'all. But all that to say, let's get started with some quick facts, Sean.
All right, well, this is the debut studio album, January of 1969 in the US. It was released March of 1969 in the UK. This thing is number 29 on the Rolling Stones 500 greatest albums of all time. And so the album covers one of the most iconic things, Hindenburg going down in flames, which ties back to how they got the name. So we had Jeff Beck, Page from Zeppelin. We had Keith Moon and Entwistle from The Who. They were going to form a group. And when they were talking about it, Moon said, well, that'd probably go over like a lead balloon. And Entwistle said that'd probably go over like a Led Zeppelin. So that's how they got the odd name.
That would have been quite the group, eh?
That would have been quite the group, my man.
And this album is kind of the turning point for hard rock music in a popular sense.
Yes.
Jimmy Page, a lot of people say he started the guitar riff as a main component of the songwriting. And so that's pretty unique here. And they took a lot of contemporary folk and blues songs throughout this album and made them their own. So that's something interesting, and there was some controversy later on about that, but all in all, they have a very unique, hard sound to them.
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting things about this album, it was recorded over 36 hours in the studio. It cost less than 2,000 British pounds back in 1968. They were able to do that because they went on a tour of Scandinavia. Long story I won't get into, but they had done that before they ever went in the studio. They didn't have a record contract. So Page and their manager was paying for the studio time, Trey. So that'll get you in a hurry in the studio when you're paying for it out of your own pocket. Page actually produced it, you know, and so we had Robert Plant on the lead vocals and the harmonica. You had John Paul Jones,
a session musician.
Page
brought in.
Yeah, exactly, on the keyboards and the bass, and then you had, of course, John Bonham. Many consider, almost all consider, along with Keith Moon of The Who, the greatest drummer of all time.
Yeah, so we got another super group here. We just reviewed The Who recently, and that's a super group, so we're hitting some big time players here. And this thing was commercially a top 10 hit in the US and the UK when it came out, but the critics, especially over here in the States, Rolling Stone, they weren't a huge fan of this thing. But over time, of course, a bunch of people have come to see its significance and importance in music history, and that is where we are at today.
Trey, that's going to kind of take us into the first song, which is an original song, Good Times, Bad Times. It's only 2 minutes and 43 seconds. This was released as a single because it's short. Almost all the other songs are long and weren't released as singles. It peaked at number 80 on the Billboard charts, so not a huge hit.
Yeah, and I just really like the very start. You hear the drums kick in, Bonham's power here. I think that is just a good signature sound for what the band was going to display on this album, and probably, of course, in the future. And I just thought this was a nice, fun, short, quick song that introduced everybody in a good way. We have a great guitar riff here, guitar solo by Page that really stood out to me. All in all, I think it was a really great, powerful way to kick off the record, and one of my favorite tracks.
Mine too.
Then that takes us into a much more mellow track.
Very mellow.
Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You. This is a folk song originally written in the late 50s, made famous by Joan Baez, who Page and Plant were a huge fan of.
Yes.
And this is maybe my favorite track on the entire record, which I know it's not the most popular one, but I just really enjoyed this one. I thought Plant had a very good vocal here, and I liked how it was very mellow kind of at the start, and then midway through the song we go into the big breakdown, and Plant's just belting out his voice here. Babe, I'm gonna leave you. And I just thought it was really powerful, and just it stood out to me for that reason.
Yeah, and I mean, the song is about a breakup, you know, and I mean, like you said, very mellow, very good. Plant's vocals do stand out on this because the music is played at a much slower pace, so it showcases his vocals, which doesn't happen much on this album. All right, Trey, we're up to song number 3, You Shook Me. It is a cover of Muddy Waters' 1962 song. On that song, it has an interesting sound. On the original, he sings his vocals in kind of unison with a slide guitar played by Earl Hooker.
Yeah, and that kind of comes into play here because Page kind of copied Earl Hooker's slide guitar, but he made it his own. He really stretched it out. And
he did.
Even with these covers, you know, the Led Zeppelin kind of reinvents them and makes them their own. So that's something that I appreciate, that they are able to put their talent forth and make some old songs something new.
Yeah, and Jeff Beck originally redid this song about 9 months before Led Zeppelin did it. The song's 6.5 minutes long, which is much longer than Beck's and Waters.
Yeah, and one other person that kind of went under the radar here and kind of is the, I think, unsung hero of Led Zeppelin, if you will, is John Paul Jones. He plays organ throughout this entire record pretty well, and he has a good solo here. You have Plant on harmonica, so all in all, I just like the way the sounds mesh together.
Yeah, and Plant sampled a little bit of Robert Johnson.
That's right.
Who shows up in so many of our reviews. He was such an influence on guys early on in rock and roll and in the 60s.
Yeah, and this is a very bluesy type song, so you can definitely see where that influence came in.
And we've got the first song that has controversy, and it's kind of a theme on this thing with Page. He borrowed songs from people, and some people think he plagiarized a lot of stuff. I'm not going to get into all that. It's up to you. They do a wonderful job of playing the music either way.
Yeah.
Beck had played this thing and thought that Page stole it for Led Zeppelin.
Because he was on their tour for a while.
Page said he'd never heard it till Beck's album came out, but Page was actually traveling along on the tour with Beck the previous summer, so he would have heard it. So the odds that Page didn't know that Beck recorded it are slim to none. So we're going to come across that several times on these things. Just a little interesting thing, but all in all, the song's a banger.
Yeah, I agree, man. One of my favorites. And that takes us into yet another cover, this time written by Jake Holmes in '67, Dazed and Confused. This is one of the more famous songs off of this and a staple of their live act. Jimmy Page, when the Yardbirds were still around, heard Holmes perform this in '68 and made it his own with the Yardbirds, produced it, and they performed it live when they were still a group. And so then they just kind of took that and made it Zeppelin.
This is one of 2 songs on this album where Page actually plays his guitar with a violin bow. Incredibly difficult, very innovative thing. Plant rewrote a lot of the lyrics into kind of a bluesier version we hear here. And this is very interesting because in concert, this thing became a marathon. It averaged about 25 minutes of play, all the way up to 46 minutes was the longest recorded session on stage. 46 minutes in concert for one song. That had to be a heck of a ride.
Yeah, I know, and I was researching a little bit. I heard that some of their concerts would go up to 3 hours, so and just kind of go into some jam sessions a little bit, which whenever you got Page and Bonham and whatnot, I guess that had time to really showcase their abilities. But the song itself kind of about how this guy's confused about this girl leaving this relationship, confusing him with the relationship, and again, very blues tinged, and another song that stood out to me on this A-side.
Yeah, the instrumentation is unreal on this one. Well, next up, Trey, Your Time Is Gonna Come, which is just a simple song about Plant is singing that this girl cheated on him and she's gonna get what's coming to her.
Yeah, exactly. I noticed most of the lyrics center around relationships, females going crazy on these these
there must have been some bad times for these boys with females that inspired all this.
But again, I thought there was a great organ solo in here. John Paul Jones putting in the work, and another good vocal performance, unique style by Plant here, and overall good track. Then that takes us into an instrumental, Black Mountainside. This is taken from a traditional folk song called Black Waterside. And this was just about a little over 2 minutes, just a nice instrumental. Nothing too much for me to say about it. It was just some good instrumentation here.
Yeah, it was good. Now, we get back to kind of the theme. Page took songwriting credit for this. His finger-picking style and arrangement is exactly the same as Black Waterside. So that caused some controversy as well, but it does show off his instrumental skills are just off the charts. All right, next up we have Communication Breakdown, which is a really good song. It's a song about Plants that's talking about he likes this girl.
Yeah.
but he doesn't know how to tell her. So we have a true communication breakdown.
And this song developed from Page's guitar riff, and the rest of the band just wrote the lyrics and songs around it.
Yeah.
And I'm with you, Sean. I thought this was a very, again, fast-paced, powerful song. And one of my, favorite genres of music is punk. And one of the forerunners of punk is the Ramones, of course.
Yes.
Johnny Ramone said this song was a big inspiration for him. He learned how to play those fast down chords
downstrokes,
by just playing this song over and over again. So this song, again, showing how it was influential to music down the road.
Exactly.
Then we go into another blues-type track, I Can't Quit You, Baby. This was written by a guy named Willie Dixon and first performed in '56. This song was, again, good, longer, as a lot of them were. It wasn't one of my favorites on the album, but still, you got to appreciate the instrumentation here and just the all-around sound of it.
Talking about the instrumentation, they stretch this song out to really showcase Page's skills. On the guitar solo, he takes a little break. There's a 4-bar unaccompanied setup.
That's right.
Before he launches back into the guitar solo. Listen for that. It is tremendous. All right, Trey, we're up to the closer. How many times? And this baby clocks in at 8.5 minutes. The instrumentation on it is tremendous. The first issues of this album, Page listed this song at 3 minutes 30 seconds because he knew radio stations wouldn't play it, so he's trying to trick them into playing it. So that's kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah, just be like, okay, guys, and then they get going. It's like, oh, this thing's 8.5 minutes
Yeah,
long.
I was thinking that trick's only going to work one time, right? But then they changed it later on the album.
Yeah, and Page, he plays the guitar with this violin. It's called the bowed guitar.
Yeah,
it's a new,
just like on Dazed and Confused.
Yeah, new term that I learned today, but very impressive. And I thought it was a good way to end the album, kind of a summation, bluesy, folky type of song that made up the theme of the entire record. And all in all, just a good exclamation point here. Really good drums by Bonham. We haven't mentioned that a lot, but I mean,
Bonham's insane.
The powerful drums, the kick pad that he does is really crazy too. Just everything about it, just very impressive and a great sound. And I guess that's going to take us into our favorite tracks. What about you, Sean?
Good Times, Bad Times. The very first one, I really liked it. There's a few on here I like, but I call that one my favorite.
Yeah, that's going to be up there. Babe, I'm Going to Leave You. I still think that's going to be at the top for me, and I really like Dazed and Confused too. Just kind of the song that starts off kind of mellow and then boom. I like songs that start off slow and then go into fast good instrumentations, and so I enjoyed those. And for me, I'm gonna go a 9.0 on this album for my score band. This is our first introduction to Zepp, and I know not everybody loves them, of course, and that's cool. Music's subjective, but for me, man, this thing just kind of epitomizes what a rock and roll band should be. Just the skill between Bonham and Jones and Page especially are just really crazy, and Plant supplements that nice with some high vocals that just worked well for me, and I'm looking forward to hearing more from them.
For me, Trey, I'm going to give it an 8.0. For me, for the instrumentation part of it alone, Bonham, Jones, and Page are unbelievable. Plant's vocals are good.
Yeah.
It's
got a unique voice, kind of polarizing.
And it's hard to rewind to 1969 and kind of put ourselves in that spot to how revolutionary this was and was going to be the years to come. And it's gained an appreciation even among critics who didn't like it at first. So I'm going to go an 8.0.
Nice, yeah. And I guess that's going to wrap it up from us today, man. Really enjoyed this. We'll have more Zeppelin in the future for sure. Their albums make it easy. It's just Led Zeppelin 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
So as always, Sean, the research behind the operation, really appreciate you joining.
My pleasure.
And guys, be sure to comment below. Let us know what you think of the debut record from Led Zeppelin. And as I said earlier, be sure to hit that big red subscribe button. We upload twice a week, a variety of genres. There's going to be something for everybody here. And until next time, happy listening, my friends, and we will see you.